had a chance to chat a little bit with my panelists beforehand, and you guys are gonna absolutely love them. We're gonna talk about the future of neurotechnology, which is absolutely fascinating, mind-blowing. So without further ado, I'm gonna bring my panelists up to the stage. First, we have Jen French. She's the founder and executive director of Neurotech Network, a nonprofit organization that focuses on education and advocacy of neurotechnologies. Jen has helped launch successful divisions in such organizations as Bombardier Capital and Connection, as well as several nonprofit organizations and community/patient engagement programs. She serves on several boards, including the Institute of Neuroethics, Open Minds, and the American Brain Coalition, and she is also a faculty member of the Neurotech course and the author of the book On My Feet Again and co-author of Psyonic Pioneers. Jen is also an avid sailor and a silver medalist from the 2012 Paralympic Games, as well as a 2012 Rolex Yachtswoman of the Year. Please welcome Jen French. Told you we got good panelists. This is awesome. This is awesome. Our next guest is Nickolai. Nickolai is a neuroscientist with a PhD from Imperial College London, a prolific speaker on a range of neuroscience topics, and a co-founder and CEO of BrainPatch.ai. BrainPatch was founded with the vision to change the world through allowing everyone to tap into the hidden potential of our brains using two-way brain-computer interfaces. Together with his team, they developed effective stimulation protocols that mimic the sensations of meditation and deliver similar benefits for mental well-being, especially for reducing stress and burnout. Please welcome Nickolai Vysokov. And he will be doing a demo later on. You put these headphones and you get drunk, all right? That's where neurotechnology is going. He'll talk about it a little bit later on. Next up, we have Alexandra Zimmerman. Alexandra is the CEO of BrainSpec, a pioneering precision neuroengineering startup founded at Mass General Brigham. She holds degrees in mechanical engineering from Tufts, biomedical engineering from Brown, and an MBA from Harvard Business School, where she was honored with the R.F. Jazz Distinguished Award in Entrepreneurship. Her experience as a Blavatnik Fellow in Life Science Entrepreneurship at Harvard University was instrumental in the company's success, bridging the gap between cutting-edge scientific research and clinical translation, all right? She's come up with a number of amazing innovations, including the breakthrough device designation for detecting 2-hydroxyglutarate in gliomas. This breakthrough technology holds great potential for advancing the understanding and treatment of neurological disorders. Alex's work exemplifies the intersection of innovation, science, and real-world impact. Please welcome Alexandra Zimmerman. And last but certainly not least, Dale Dimassi is a bionic filmmaker who captures the humanity in everyday moments where ordinary people achieve the extraordinary. As an amputee and advocate, he collaborates with like-minded organizations to amplify, impact, redefine perceptions, and drive meaningful change. Please welcome Dale Dimassi. All right, everybody feeling good? Nice, awesome. It's a pleasure to be the moderator for all of you. I know this is going to go to so many different directions because we are talking about the future of neurotechnology, and all of you have really unique backgrounds in this field, which I think is really important because neuroscience is a very complex field. A lot of people are still getting ingratiated with it and getting a general understanding, but to really try to bring this home, I think it's important to personalize it for people so people feel grounded. It makes this a little bit more palatable and relatable for everyone that's in this room today. So my very first question, and we're going to go down the line for each of you. What impact has neurotechnology had on your life, and why do you believe this field draws such a deep human interest? Yeah, we'll start off with you.
Well, obviously, I wear this technology, and it's a part of my day-to-day life. I personally benefit from it, and a big part of what I do, what I'm passionate about, and what my career centers around is sharing that with others and helping to provide access to advanced bionics like this to people in the world that can take advantage of it.
So I'm a biomedical engineer, and I've always been fascinated by neuroscience. I think of all the topics, exploring the bounds of deep space might be the only thing more interesting than fundamentally understanding the human brain. I think we've probably all had someone personally affected by neurodegenerative disorders or psychiatric conditions, so I'm really excited to discuss the innovations to come in this field.
Awesome. Nickolai?
I'm a neuroscientist by background, and I've been fascinated by this ever since childhood. Probably at around about the age of 10 was my first neural interface, where you take a 9-volt battery, and I can hear some giggles in the audience, and then when you apply it to your tongue, that's what you get. So you get, if the battery is out of juice, then you feel a kind of a metallic taste. This is an experiment in inducing taste using non-invasive electrical interfaces. If the battery is working fully, that's an experiment on pain. So you have an ouch on this. Now fast forward to 2020, we're in this, everybody was there. Hands up if you felt stressed or if you felt the COVID times. So we are entering this mental health pandemic, and when that was happening, I experienced burnout, and I realized that we need to take care of our mental health, and this is at the same time when we developed the platform and we realized that there is an application there. And for me now, whenever I feel things are overwhelming, I use our device, and it saves my life and it saves the life of other customers as well. So I think this is something that's really inspiring. It's something that motivates me and others to go into that space.
Wow, great story. It's hard to follow, let me tell you. I'm not a neuroscientist. I'm not an engineer. I'm probably the dumbest person in this room. But I was in the consumer electronics business, so it's so ironic to be here. So thank you, Motive, for joining us. I was in the consumer electronic business, and I was thrown in the world of paralysis from a spinal cord injury when I was in my 20s. And it changed my life, basically. And about a year and a half after my injury, I discovered a research project that included an implantable neuroprosthesis that allows me to use my paralyzed limbs. And I'm still using that device today, 25 years later. And so personally, I see the experience of these technologies and what it can do over a period of time. But I think my real aha moment is I was sitting at I was actually on a panel at an NIH conference with other people living with various neurological conditions. Someone with a hearing impairment with a cochlear implant, somebody else with a deep brain stimulation from Parkinson's disease. And we all had the same experience, trying to find new devices and technologies, trying to find new solutions for chronic conditions where there's no solution was incredibly difficult, and that's why we started Neurotech Network to help build awareness and advocacy. And I've been in this space for 20 plus years, and I'm really excited about where we are today and where we're now seeing a huge convergence of medicine, of technology, and of society. So I think we're really at a pivotal moment where we're starting to see explosions of neurotech.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing. And this is really incredible because, like you said, each of you have really personal experiences with this that have really shaped your understanding. And it's funny, Nickolai, you mentioned the battery in the mouth. I was going to say, don't try this at home. But there is a new innovation that's being displayed here at CES. It's a spoon. You may have seen this one.
I've seen this one.
Where people
they
that
took this 9-volt battery concept to a whole new level.
Exactly. If you have diabetes or something and you're trying to limit maybe your salt intake, this spoon could actually make your foods taste saltier. And it's basically based off that same premise. So radical innovation, but very applicable. So that being said, kind of the advancements in neurotechnology and the direction that this is going, we'll get into the future foresights as far as the far future where neurotechnology can go later on in this conversation. But for now, how do you see neurotechnology really shaping the way we live, work, and interact overall as just a society in the near future, as today, present time, and around the corner in the very near future?
The advancements that are just around the corner, fortunately, working for a company that produces bionics, I kind of get to see a sneak peek into the future. And the things that are just on the horizon are things that just a couple years ago were science fiction, or things that were promised to us in society when I was a kid in films like Star Wars and stuff. And to see those things coming to life and to be useful and impactful in people's day-to-day lives is a really, really powerful thing, not just to witness, but also to experience.
Alexandra, like Chen? No, you actually, I was going to say. You can go ahead.
Oh, I get, okay. So, how many people are familiar with somebody that has a neurological condition? Mental health, Alzheimer's, stroke, TBI, concussion. You know, a lot of us are. A lot of us are connected to that. And you know, neurotech has its roots in medicine. That's really where it started. But I think where we're starting to see the convergence in society is even our previous panelists were talking about wellness. Wellness is kind of the other big space. But now, you know, working with IEEE, we had an earlier panelist on IEEE neuroethics, we're starting to see neurotech permeate a lot of our areas of society when we think about it having impact on education, on employment, on our legal system, on entertainment and the arts. We're going to start seeing neurotechnology permeate into these different aspects of society. And I think that's where we really want to start paying attention, is we're getting out of this comfort zone of medical and wellness and into all of these other aspects of society.
Nickolai, would you like to chime in?
I think that where we are right now, and I agree, it will start to permeate. Where we are right now is we're at the very, very early stages of this kind of taking off in a way that we think we know how big it's gonna go, but it's gonna be much bigger. It's a little bit like, I would compare it to probably the just before the rebirth of AI. So just before like DeepMind and deep convolutional neural networks, just before that happened, that's where we are in neurotech space, where we've got the technology, we've got kind of some of the basics, and the applications that are going to come about, they're going to transform our lives in ways that we have never imagined.
Right, I think there has been a tremendous amount of progress in the last 20 years in terms of our understanding of the brain, but really we're just at the very forefront and we only have the most basic understanding of complexity and function. You know, really only 150 years ago did we even realize, you know, brain impacts personality and cognition. So I think it's a very exciting time and hard to even imagine what we'll do with the knowledge that we'll gain in the next 10 years.
Absolutely amazing. And you really think about how this innovation is moving. You said it's, it's going to be permeating in so many different areas, and it's advancing so quickly, right? And we talk about things that seem around the corner. We've talked about technology in the past, and before we know it, it's here, right? And we're really on the doorstep. We're on the frontier of where neurotechnology is really headed. But with that being said, there's so many implications, especially when you think about health and wellness. And you could speak to this, Alexandra, doing work in health field as well. There's already so many disparities, especially in health and wellness, when it comes to racial disparities and economic disparities. When it comes to neurotechnology, how can we help bridge the gap between accessibility and also affordability of neurotechnological advancements to really make it equitable and also to be mindful of those impacts that could have, whether it's racially, economically, or financially on the society in whole?
Sure, you know, I think AI gets a lot of attention in terms of pushing the boundaries of cutting-edge research, but I think one thing I'm really excited about is looking how, you know, AI and technological advancement can actually replicate, you know, the cutting-edge technology at rural settings that really don't have access to the expertise or equipment available. So I think really looking at just a rapid expansion of knowledge, and, you know, I think if we think about how, right, the internet revolutionized the access to information and research, I really see, you know, that as the next impetus, where we're really rapidly expanding access to just information in a way that, you know, will be hard to even predict how that will impact things, but I actually feel hopeful in terms of reducing disparities just by having more broad access to information.
Anybody else like to touch on that?
Yeah, if I could dovetail off of what you just said, because I think you had touched on a really important point, Alex, is that, you know, when we think about medicine, right, and I think this was mentioned on a previous panel, was that we just, you know, we might, from a psychological standpoint, we ask questions, right? In a neurological sense, when they wanted to see whether I could have cessation, they take a pin and stick it into your skin. Think of how archaic that is, right? Think of only a few years ago when we were in the pandemic, we started to embrace telemedicine, and it started to make medicine much more accessible, particularly for people that don't have transportation to go to medical facilities. Those who are in rural communities where hospitals are closing down, they suddenly have access to specialists. But we went away from that. We have to start thinking about how do we take the technology that we have today and we improve the way that we treat. When we can start looking at using a technology in terms of just having a window to the brain or having a window to how the body is actually experiencing symptoms instead of just asking how you feel, and then being able to track that and be able to treat. Meaning that we can use technology, AI, and data for better treatments and better outcomes when it comes to treatment of various types of conditions.
And I also just wanted to add quickly that there's a debate between invasive and non-invasive technology. I mean, for medicine, of course, the invasive technologies are necessary, but when it comes to equitable distribution and with non-invasive technologies, this is a lot more accessible than having a chip implanted into your head. So in a sense, it's a headset that you just put on and you're ready to go. So making it, I think it's the non-invasive technologies in neurotech that will act to bridging that gap. Yes, it's not cheap, but then, so iPhones or Android devices, they're not cheap, but they're accessible, and they've helped bridge that gap in the disparity. That's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, one thing that we're doing at Psyonic that is directly helping to make things more accessible is our hand is ideal not just for humans in a prosthetic application, but also robotic applications. And you think of the exponential growth in like humanoid robots, robots in manufacturing, and how that demand and the increase in the quantity of these hands that exist out there in the world and what that future looks like and how that's going to bring down the cost and break a lot of barriers as far as accessibility from a cost perspective, because that's been a big barrier with advanced prosthetics, bionics, and a lot of the more like cutting edge of technology, and to see that crossing over where the two sides of this are really coming together, and there's a lot of research and information on the human side that benefits the robotic side, and scaling up on the robotic side is really helping with affordability and bringing costs down for people. It just, to me, I see like a really amazing future on the horizon.
Amazing. And I think that's really important discussion to be had, right? Because when we think about technologies overall, there's so many disparities, and you want to think things like prosthetics, right? The fact that so many people can't even afford prosthetic arms, and a lot of times those unfortunately happen to be underserved communities as well too, to be able to have access to those things. I think everything you talked about as far as the cutting edge and kind of where this is leading is going to be really important for people to understand and to be able to have that foresight. So with that being said, especially for you, Dale, being the bionic filmmaker, talking about storytelling, I think storytelling is really important in a lot of aspects, and being a filmmaker and content creator myself, being able to educate on science topics, to be able to make it palatable and explainable for general audiences. How do you see stories as far as being able to reshape the narrative when it comes to neurotechnology? What stories are there to be told when it comes to this field and advancements in this field, and how it could really be able to make an impact on society?
Yeah, I think, in the past, these kind of stories have been relegated to the science fiction realm, and as these things come to fruition and become real, I think it's a lot more palatable to audiences to be able to tell stories that incorporate things happening in the real world and technology that maybe people aren't aware of, but is actually out there and changing lives today. And it's a big thing that I'm excited about as a filmmaker, is sharing those stories with people and exposing people just to the fact that like these life-changing technologies do exist. They're here today, and changing people's perception, and again through awareness, increasing access and things like that are just really powerful things that we can do through media. So that's kind of like my perspective on that, and like my aim through what I'm trying to do.
Nickolai, I think this is applicable to you as well too. With your product, there's always storytelling involved in launching a new product. Kind of what stories are you seeing out there to be told as far as the human connection that people can make to your device?
So first of all, as scientists are notoriously bad at storytelling. In general, but you know, other than the story that I've told with burnout, we've had customers who are coming to us and then they're saying like, oh, your device helped me, you know, best sleep I've had in years. Or sometimes we hear stories about people who it helped them deal with depression, bipolar disorder. We had a client with ADHD. There's a couple of that left reviews on our retailer's website that help them with, you know, this, that, and the other. And this is the kind of stories that bring the meaning to what we do at our company. Does that answer your question? Sorry.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And Alexandra, any of you like to touch on?
Sure, you know, I think thinking about our technology at BrainSpec, right, it's a virtual biopsy, but the core technology has existed for many, many years, but the technical barrier to use it, right, was limited to, you know, a field of experts that could actually use it. So, you know, a lot of what we've done has just been trying to make that usable and simple to an average user for broader adoption. So I think a lot of times innovation can come, you know, not necessarily from even breaking edge technology, but in how we just explain things and present them to those that need to make clinical decisions. Because I think making sure, you know, what you're working on can appeal to a broader audience, you know, can be important in just advancing technology.
Yeah, I think, you know, storytelling is such a way for us to connect to the technology, right? And we, especially those of us that are enthusiasts in this place, love to tell stories about our success stories. We love to get people on stage and say, look what our technology can do. Look how it's changed people's lives. But you know what? We very rarely tell the stories of failure. We very rarely tell the stories of when the device doesn't work and why. And you know, I think those stories are important for us to learn and how we can, you know, help to mold our technology into our society. I'll give you just one example. Is, you know, when the cochlear implant was first launched, we as scientists all thought that, wow, it's going to totally change the way the hearing, you know, those who are deaf can now hear, how wonderful it is. And they put it out on the market, but you know what? The deaf community rejected it. And you know why? It's because they saw it as an attack on the deaf culture. So if we don't tell those stories of how to really understand how we integrate the technology into our society in various ways, and we be able to pull back and learn from those experiences, we're going to keep making those same mistakes. So I think storytelling is not just about the success stories of the devices, but also how we failed and how do we correct and pivot to help improve access to the technology that we have and what we're developing.
Yeah, and that's the reason why diversity is so important when even you think about racial diversity, gender diversity, because those stories do get told in those rooms when people are making those innovations, right? To be able to have them at the table when the decisions are being made, to understand the ramifications or understand how it's going to affect certain communities. So those are all things that we have to be mindful of as we continue to advance this in society. So we touched a little bit about impacts on society, and I think there's another area that everybody's always interested in, and that's kind of unlocking human potential, right? What humanity can do just as individual beings, and neurotechnology has a lot of implications when it comes to that. To what extent do you guys think, and we can kind of shape this from different perspectives as well, can neurotechnology really unlock untapped human abilities, such as memory improvement, maybe even things like psychological enhancement or perhaps enhanced learning? Where can you kind of see neurotechnology being able to unlock those areas of humanity?
You know, for me, you know, that's a very personal thing, and you know, it comes down to the way I approach the world. Since I was born, I always had to approach the world differently than everyone, and I kind of had to learn to forge my own path and navigate a two-handed world with one hand. And for the technology in the prosthetic space to come to the point where it is now, where my new challenge is relearning how to navigate in the world and actually do things with two hands. And you know, taking on that learning curve and learning to retrain my brain, you know, has its own amazing benefits. You know, like I say, unlocking potential. Also, its own challenges, and I think also I feel like to a certain extent the world sees me in a different way. So there's also the social aspect of it as well, and you know, I always think like, what's the potential benefit to the future generation, and like just the amazing things that, you know, another generation of kids who were born with limb differences to not have to face some of the same challenges, some of the same obstacles that I did, and have a more equitable future is something that, you know, really inspires me and makes me want to push the future of this technology, like see where we can go with it.
I think there's a sort of, just to clarify to the audience, you know, those who've seen, I think it was Limitless, the movie, where it's like, you know, unlimited human potential, and, you know, I don't think that's happening with neurotechnology anytime soon. But I think the benefits that we should expect from neurotechnology should be similar to the benefits that we get from some of the more natural things, like, you know, having a walk or meditating. So meditation is actually quite powerful and gives you a lot of benefits. Tapping. How many of you in the audience have tried meditating? And how many of you are struggling? Keep your hand up. Are finding it difficult? So you see, this is where, this kind of meditation, you know the benefits of it, but it's very, very difficult. So neurotechnology would help you in that sense of bringing similar benefits, but don't expect it to be a magic bullet that will make you, you know, multiply 3-digit numbers in your head without a thought.
You know, I don't look at neurotechnology as enhancements or augmentation. I think we need to think about it as how do we use the technology, neurotechnologies, to unlock our human potential that we already have within us. And I want you to think about, you know, how you can use that technology to improve whatever it might be, whether it's the function of your brain or your nervous system or peripheral nerves or what have you. So I want you to think about, you know, like a student that has dyslexia and how they can use technology to help them read at a much quicker pace than what they could with their peers, and how they can better perform in their academics. Think about people with full paralysis or very extreme paralysis that can now use a BCI to be able to type faster than an average able-bodied human being, and making them much more productive in the workplace. So when we think about coupling and using technology and neurotechnology, we have to think about how do we unlock the human potential within us.
Yeah, you know, it's an interesting topic where I think I spend most of my time thinking more about disorders and dysfunction than, you know, enhancing positive performance. But, you know, I completely agree. Things like meditation, exercise, lifestyle interventions, we can actually measure changes in brain chemistry in those interventions, right? That, you know, I don't know if it's going to unlock future human potential, but just really better understanding what's effective and why, I think, is exciting. So, you know, seeing how and why those, you know, simple things that we all struggle to do actually can make measurable change in the brain, I think is exciting. And, right, who knows what that could possibly lead to in terms of cognitive enhancement in the future.
Just being a little bit more reasonable at times.
Yeah, but avoid the overhype. That's one thing that people don't want to hear, is the overhype.
And really, when we think about unlocking human potential, one of the first things that really comes to mind is mental health. And you tapped on this a little bit early on, and Alexandra, I'm sure you could speak on this as well too. It's been so amazing seeing just kind of our whole humanities movement towards, you know, being more ingratiated with mental health and having an understanding and empathy in regards to mental health and things that people are struggling with in mental well-being. Especially over the past decade, it's been such a big movement, and people are more open and cognizant about their mental health and doing everything from meditating to going out in nature, finding ways to be able to find that harmony and balance within themselves. And I think that's part of unlocking human potential as well too. But when we think about advancements in neurotechnology, and you even think things like you know, brain interfaces, right? How do we kind of balance that line between what we would consider therapy and also what would be considered enhancements with neurotechnology, because there's kind of a fine line in there, and you may have had situations dealing with this in the health field as well too, because we think about therapeutic aspects of neurotechnology, but then you also think about just the humanistic aspect of truly being in a better place and being in a better mindset and being healed. Kind of where do you see that line and that division being? Want to start, Angie?
Sure, yeah, I think a lot of innovation really comes from, the hardcore science and the therapy, right, where it's a very limited population, a specific indication. I think that's where a lot of the core research is conducted. We're really not, I don't think anyone is trying to just start at kind of the broader enhancement. So I think it's something that's a fine line to look at, but I think just looking at scientific innovation, exciting to see, what of kind of the broad field of technology could even be applied to a broader population, but I do think there, is a longer lead time for that, right? Where, kind of the system of scientific research, before something is, I think ready for a broader population, a lot of work needs to be done kind of in something more specific and targeted in terms of a therapy. So, I see kind of complementary in terms of how we think about it, but, not really skipping to that sci-fi step where you imagine things, but kind of starting with very limited applications to prove out technology.
Yeah, I think, mental health, I think, is an incredible place that we're going right now, is really understanding the brain. And not only for better diagnosis, but we understand that it's really a chemical imbalance in the brain, and how do we improve that? So I think this is a really interesting question, because sometimes I approach this as an athlete, right? As a Paralympic athlete, you see athletes using muscle stimulation and cupping and even TDCS to get themselves in that right mental state for competition. But when I was in competition, I had this implanted neuroprosthesis, and I was told by our WADA advisors not to use it because it was considered enhancement. So I think this line between what is actually using for therapeutic purposes or being able to improve your performance compared to what is considered enhancement is a really interesting question that I think we haven't grappled with yet.
And I think most people are in the, there's a spectrum, like, autism, there's a spectrum, attention deficit, there's a spectrum, I sometimes struggle to, concentrate on reading a book, but I'm not on the, I had somebody somewhere there, he put a line in there that said, that's clinical, that's non-clinical. Like, come on. Where do you draw the line? So we'll see that transitioning and then being back and forward, and the technology is being applied across the spectrum for different indications or consumer uses. Gray line.
Yeah, I think, as far as like what the state of where we're at versus like potentially like over-promising and things like that, I personally, I gave up wearing prosthetics for 30 years because the promise of what the state of prosthetics would be, what it would be able to do in our lives, was so oversold that the reality of it was so far from what people were talking about being just around the corner. And, I think that's something that it turns into an ethical question as far as how we market things, how we approach those things, and but also not losing sight of what that potential is down the line, 5 years, 10 years, a generation, that we really do, kind of getting back to that idea of like this untapped, unlimited human potential that we could potentially unlock, but also like doing it in a grounded, balanced way, and not discouraging people from entering the field or from taking advantage of those technologies by overselling it for, in some cases, notoriety, for commercial gain. That, there's the ethical side, there's ethical implications to these things, and that there's a balance to keep.
Amazing. And this next question, we probably could have touched on it actually at the very beginning, because I think in order to really be able to properly forecast and predict where things are going, we kind of have to understand a little bit about what the technology is and isn't. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of misconceptions. And this is kind of unique because each of you have different experiences within neuroscience. What are some common misconceptions that you frequently encounter when it comes to the future of neurotechnology, or what the technology actually is, and how can we better address these to prepare for a more accessible and equitable future, as we discussed earlier? Jen?
Oh, awareness is so incredible. Each of you raised your hand where you knew somebody with a neurological condition or or even with mental health. And if you could just take away for that one person to let them know that the technology is being developed and what's available, it can really change the way that we think about technology. So I think building awareness is such a misconception. We're in the technology space, so we're aware of it. But those who are out in regular society really are not exposed to it. So I think building awareness is incredibly important. I think there's also a lot of misconceptions that, if you put an implanted device in me, you're going to be tracking me everywhere, and who's touching my data, and even for a non-invasive, where we're looking at collecting data, people get concerned about it. I think that's a huge misconception in this space. Is this something that we need to be concerned about and address? Absolutely. But I think it tends to be a misconception.
Yeah, I think there can be a lot of fear with new technology, especially in biotechnology, right? I think sometimes when we hear about neurotech, we kind of can invoke a lot of fear, right? And what does that look like? Is it some brain interface? And I think a lot of that fear typically is unfounded, especially in clinical research, right? Where there is a long process of checks and balances to ensure patient safety. I think thinking about technology like CRISPR, where, there's a lot of fear around, are we going to have genetically modified humans, right? How could this be used? And then I think when you see how it's actually been rolled out, right? It's been a very slow process of starting to finally have some really exciting breakthroughs in gene therapy. So I think, with anything new, that there can be fear, but just I think having faith in the scientific process of developing the technology in a way that's safe and effective, even if that can be too slow, then sometimes we hope.
I think in terms of misconceptions, there's been sort of the cycle of hype and under-hype, over-hype. So when I think that one of the first consumer brain stimulation devices came about, it was I think it was a company called Think, and then people were thinking, that's going to make me smarter and things like that, multiple times, and obviously it sort of didn't meet the expectations. And now there's the opposite misconception of thinking, like all the non-invasive brain stimulation devices, they don't work. So and we with our device, we're having to fight through that, and then there's a lot of skepticism as well. People, and there are some of you in the audience who tried it and can say, yeah, it does work. So we are trying to, fight those cycle of misconceptions coming back and forward.
Yeah, the biggest misconception I see, like personally with prosthetics, is I get the question a lot, and people kind of have the somewhat of a misconception with like, are you controlling that with your brain? And to a certain extent, I am. But it also kind of brings up the question of like, where is it interfacing with the body? Where does that line exist? So like I control this hand, with my mind as much as I control this arm. But where that interface is, like for me, for instance, it's actually reading my muscle contractions. And so sometimes in the media and different things, there's a lot of misconceptions as far as like, this brain control prosthesis and like what that really means and how we could maybe be more responsible and better define what that means. I think is something to kind of be aware of.
I think this kind of ties into, especially Dale and Nickolai, is having products both on you and with you. When we talk about developing these, a lot of times it may seem easy, right? You see the finished product and you're like, oh, this is cool. There was a lot of, there was a lot of engineering, a lot of development that went into it. But a lot of times you don't see the challenges, the obstacles along the way. So as we kind of start nearing to wrap up this panel, we'll do one more question before this because I think we're getting caught up. Can you talk really quickly about kind of what challenges researchers and developers face, maybe perhaps individual challenges that you and your individual companies faced in developing your neurotechnology, and also challenges that other researchers, peers in your industry kind of have to think about when it comes to advancements in this field?
Back in 2018, I sort of, was invited and I gave this TEDx talk on the future of neurotechnology, where it's combining personalization, using AI for personalized protocols for stimulation for different applications. And I still think this is where the future is, in using machine learning for tailoring different stimulations and different ways in which we interact with the brain. And we're still going down that directions, but we realize that this is really, really complicated. One thing is the idea of using AI, and another thing is actually putting the AI into practice. We're collaborating with a company that's doing FNIRS, but we're open to collaborations with companies doing EEG, and other devices. And developing, the challenge is even developing that stimulator, that was a huge process in all the different little things that come into, including even packaging, that even that takes up months sometimes to do. But I think together with, and the future of neurotechnology is in collaborations with other companies, and we're open to this, and I think this is where the industry will going, and this is where the breakthroughs will come in, and working together to make the world a better place.
I think one place that is a challenge, again, my experience personally is in the prosthetic side of things, where one thing that I think people overlook a lot is like the robustness of it. Like, this is something that, if I choose to wear this, it's something that is essentially part of my body, and it's something that I carry with me every day, all day. And so the robustness of that, the reliability of that, is something that really matters a lot. And there's a lot of half-baked products on the market as well, and the production cycles to advance these things are very long and arduous. This process with Psyonic started long before I became part of the company, but this is our 9th generation of the hand, that it took years and years to get to a point where we had a product that was viable for the marketplace, that people could wear on a day-to-day basis and rely upon, and not have to, have a broken hand so often. And, kind of like I relate it to like having a car in the shop. If you got to take your hand off and, send it out to get fixed, and it's gone for a couple weeks or a month, and then you're adapting to life without it, and then you put it back on, and it's only so reliable. Like, that really disrupts people's lives. It makes a huge difference when you come to rely on something. And so it's really important to understand that, a lot of these things that I saw when I was younger, that this promise of the future that never really came and is starting to emerge now, is that these production cycles are so long, and to make a product that's ready for the general public, and prosthetics, that can take the wear and tear of what people put their bodies through on a day-to-day basis, is something that is a huge obstacle that companies working in this space have to overcome.
Imagine taking your arm to the shop, and they're like, your leg needs fixing too, and your eyeball's a little loose, it snowballs, right? Just as we kind of wrap things up here, I'll let Jen, I'll let you and Alexandra kind of touch on these last two questions. So as far as we think about moonshot ideas and things in the future, talk about what things kind of excite you when it comes to more advancements in this field, or maybe perhaps things that you're working on that are on the horizon that you think are very intriguing that can really take this to the next level.
Sure. So, I think we're just at the very beginning of fundamentally understanding the human brain. So at BrainSpec, we've developed the first of its kind biochemical database of the human brain. So I think very excited just to understand, there's so many questions we don't know the answer to, right? Why certain patients respond to a drug and certain patients don't, right? Why you can look at things and their severity is so much worse. So I'm just excited about just increasing our fundamental understanding of the brain for better personalized treatments and therapies for a number of different neurological conditions.
Wow, what excites me? Well, there's lots of things that excite me in this space. I'm excited about closed loop systems that will be able to both sense from your body, but then treat in a very personalized way. So the way that it would treat you, Nickolai, would be treating me differently, because all of our bodies are different. I'm excited about closed loop systems. I'm excited about non-invasive devices and the miniaturization of those devices. Yes, you're wearing headphones right now, but think about how we can be able to put on a small patch onto our skin and everyone around you wouldn't be able to see that. I'm excited about the implantable devices that are now turning to minimally invasive, where you can do a very quick outpatient surgery. Think about deep brain stimulations take 5 hours of surgery today. We can minimize that, and the new technology coming forward is helping us to do that, to help deploy it. I'm excited about the use of data-driven decisions in our medicine and being able to capture AI and large language models to be able to do that. I'm excited about the space of mental health and in rehabilitation and the various applications that we can do for people with chronic conditions where we can solve that. But I think we have headwinds ahead of us, and there's things that we have to really take into consideration. In 2023, Research America did a representative sample of the US, and Americans overall are very excited about brain research and very excited about where we're going in technology today, but they have concerns. They have concerns about the risk of injury. They have concerns about brain manipulation. They have concerns about brain health and on social stigma. And I think if we don't address those concerns, this industry is going to continue to face headwinds. So we're in a very exciting space, but we also have to be very conscious of how we're deploying this and addressing the concerns of society today.
Jen, I had no idea what closed loop systems were, but damn it, I'm excited now as well too, all right? And I'm sure everyone here in this audience is just as excited. This has been absolutely informative, and I hope everyone that maybe walked in here being novice about neurotechnology or even experts in this field walked away learning something new. I'm excited about where this innovation is gonna go, and I'm excited to see where each of you go in your careers, because this is absolutely mind-blowing, and the innovations within this field are going to be so impactful for the broader society, and I'm excited about that as well. With that said, I think it is our time, so everyone please give a big round of applause for our panelists, Jen, Nickolai, Alexandra, Dale. Future innovations in neurotechnology. Thank y'all so much, and I think it is party time now, so we'll be getting ready for a reception, so thank you all very much, appreciate it.
Wasn't that an amazing panel? So before we close the day, and we bring up the person who will be closing us for the day, I just want to say that was an amazing panel, right? Can we give them one more round of applause, please? This was amazing, so inspiring. Jen, you said you're the most stupid person in the room. I think it's me. I feel like I learned so much from the people on stage. But yes, so in closing, to bring up Pete, we all know Pete. He came up today and introduced and started this day. He is the CEO and founder of MoDev and the creator of other events such as Voice and AI, Gov AI, Code Forward, the list goes on. And I was talking to him today and he's coming up with more. And thanks to him, we are here today, but that is not the only thing that he does or who he is.
Pete is so humble. He would never tell you that not only has he created all of these events that are heart-centered, He, the man himself, is heart-centered. He's human-centered. He's building communities based on trust. And in a time where people are laughing at diversity, equity, and inclusion, he is making it real in his communities. And so thank you all so much for being here. And without further ado, let's welcome Pete to the stage. Get up here. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you. And man, what a great, let's give it up again for this panel. And the moderation was amazing. I just shot you and Annie an email with some pictures and video because that's how I met, is through his agent, Annie. And I'm so glad this all came together because you were fabulous. And let's give it up for our stage hosts today, Marlinda and Melanie. And I am so lucky because I'm surrounded by so many smart people. I just started convening people 15 years ago, and now I find myself in places like CES pulling together the neurotech industry. And last summer, when I had this idea with the CES team, I just had no idea what I would be getting myself into. And it's just a fascinating field, and it's really, really exciting. So I'm so grateful. We did a half day this year. Next year, I already know we're going to do a full day here at CES. How many of you would come back to that event? Right. So, and before we get there, I mean, it's only January 7th. We have a lot to do this year. So I look forward to talking to more of you about getting together around neurotechnology, different aspects of neurotechnology, and in cities around the world. So we travel too. All right, so what else? Any other announcements? We're about to have a reception. It's party time. Let's thank Simon and Aidan for sponsoring our reception, and let's mingle and have some fun. Okay, thank you so much.